In this video, we explore 100 calming and fascinating facts about the golden spiral, a shape that appears quietly throughout nature, repeating itself in a steady and familiar way. It's a pattern that doesn't rush. It expands slowly, following the same proportion again and again, creating a sense of balance that feels almost timeless. If you find yourself enjoying this kind of peaceful exploration, you're welcome to like the video or subscribe to the channel so these long, calming journeys can continue. Now, let's begin with the pattern itself. The golden spiral grows outward so that every curve is a scaled copy of the last, and that simple rule scale by the golden ratio is what makes the shape feel the same at any size. Whether you picture a tiny seed or a sweeping galaxy arm, the curve retains its gentle proportions and an elegant, predictable rhythm. The golden ratio, about 1.618, is a number with an unusual algebraic property. When you square it, you get itself +1, and that neat arithmetic identity is the hidden engine that makes proportional scaling behave so smoothly in the golden spiral. The Fibonacci sequence gives an easy, human way to approach the golden spiral. Each number is the sum of the two before it, and as the sequence grows, the ratios between successive numbers drift toward feeling so simple. Counting quietly leads to a continuous spiral shape. If you draw squares whose sides follow Fibonacci numbers and then sweep a soft curve through their corners, the curve approximates the golden spiral, and this hands-on construction shows how discrete, step-by-step growth can approximate a continuous, ever-similar form. A golden rectangle contains a square and a smaller golden rectangle inside it, and repeating that cut again and again produces a nested sequence of rectangles that naturally trace the same smooth curve of the golden spiral as you move inward or outward. Sunflower seed heads place new seeds at an angle that avoids overlap, and when you measure the pattern, you often find double spirals whose counts are Fibonacci numbers. That efficient packing is not a design, but a natural outcome of the same proportional spacing that produces the golden spiral. Pine cones and pineapples show multiple spiral directions across their surfaces, and if you count those spirals, you'll frequently find Fibonacci numbers repeated. Those counts reveal how local growth rules combine into a global proportional pattern that resembles the golden spiral. Many flowers have petal counts that match Fibonacci numbers, and that fact hints at a deeper connection. When growth follows simple additive rules, the resulting proportions naturally tend toward pi, which in turn produces spiraling packing and balanced arrangement. The golden angle, about 137.5 degrees, is the rotation that successive leaves or seeds often use to minimize overlap. This single angular choice yields airy, evenly spaced patterns that build into spiral forms reminiscent of the golden spiral. Seashells grow by adding material at their edges as the animal matures, and if that edge grows by a constant factor each turn, the shell's outline follows a logarithmic spiral that often approaches the proportions of a golden spiral in the most graceful specimens. The chambered nautilus evokes the golden spiral in our minds because its chambers increase smoothly in size and sit along a steady curve. And while it is not a perfect mathematical spiral, its proportional growth demonstrates how biology naturally favors balanced expansion. Romanesco broccoli displays spirals at multiple scales, a living fractal where each small bud echoes the pattern of the whole head. These self-similar spirals frequently align with Fibonacci counts and visually mimic the way a golden spiral repeats its form across scales. Spiral galaxies stretch arms across light years in curves that resemble logarithmic spirals. And although their formation is driven by gravity and orbital motion, the resulting sweep of stars often matches the same proportional sense that defines the golden spiral. Hurricanes and cyclones spin cloud bands outward around a calm eye, and the spiral arrangement of those bands spreads energy and moisture efficiently, showing how rotating, expanding systems often find proportional solutions similar to the golden spiral. Even small whirlpools trace spiral paths where rotation and outward flow meet, and these liquid spirals are miniature demonstrations of the same physical interactions that make logarithmic curves natural in rotating fluids. Animal horns and tusks grow in spirals when material is continually added at the base, while curvature persists. This proportional curling strengthens the structure and lets the horn grow without sudden weak points, a practical echo of the golden spiral's steady scaling. Spiral staircases embody the golden idea in architecture. A consistent rise combined with a steady turn creates a path that is efficient and elegant, and when built with proportional increments, they feel balanced and easy to traverse. The cochlea in the inner ear coils into a spiral that maps sound frequencies along its length. This compact, proportional winding is a biological way to pack function into limited space while maintaining a smoothly varying mechanical response. Blood and fluid channels often adopt helical or spiral pathways because those shapes distribute forces and reduce turbulence. Proportional curvature in these pathways is an efficient strategy for moving liquids with minimal energy loss. Human proportions occasionally approximate the golden ratio, for example in the relative lengths of limb segments or facial ratios. And while not a universal rule, these recurring similarities can make certain forms appear naturally balanced and pleasing. Artists overlay golden rectangles or spiral guides on compositions because the curve's path moves attention gently across the image. Used without fanfare, the golden spiral can lead the eye in a relaxed, continuous flow that feels visually comfortable. In architecture, golden proportions have been used to shape facades, room layouts, and structural forms because scaling by the golden ratio tends to distribute mass and space in a way that the eye finds calm and coherent. The golden spiral is self-similar, meaning a small section looks like a larger section, and that repeating likeness provides a visual echo that soothes because recognition occurs at many scales, offering familiarity as one zooms in or out. Fractals and golden spirals connect because both express repetition across scales. When a growth rule replicates itself at smaller sizes, the resulting pattern gains the same quiet cohesion that a golden spiral shows by constant proportional expansion. Pineapple eyes and artichoke surfaces align along crossing spirals that balance spacing and access, and those spiral grids distribute protrusions evenly, which is another natural application of the proportional logic behind the golden spiral. The family trees of honeybees trace Fibonacci counts because male bees have one parent and females have two, and mapping generations produces numbers that match the sequence whose ratios edge toward phi, revealing an unexpected numerical presence in ancestry. On a sculpted surface, a golden spiral curvature moves highlights and shadows in a slow, predictable way. The slope changes gradually, so light rolls across the form without sudden jumps, creating a calm sensory experience. Designers who use the golden rectangle as a layout tool create visual hierarchies that read naturally, as though the layout itself breathes. The same gentle proportional steps used in the spiral ensure no single element dominates abruptly. The golden ratio's algebraic neatness gives it stability. It solves optimization-like relationships, where a part relates to the whole in consistent proportion, which is why balanced growth and efficient packing often return to this number. You can approximate a golden spiral by calculating points with exponential growth in polar coordinates, and that mathematical description explains why the curve remains smooth and never kinks. The formula enforces continuous, graceful change. In crafts where you add rounds or layers, applying a proportional increase yields spirals that sit flat and even, and this same practical rule in needlework or pottery mirrors how nature expands things smoothly using golden-like scaling. Ancient artisans carved spirals because they recognized a pleasing scale. Those motifs repeat in stone and pottery worldwide, suggesting that humans have long been drawn to the balance the golden spiral embodies even before the math was named. When organisms grow by adding to their edges, proportional spirals can arise naturally. The simple mechanical act of expanding outward by the same factor keeps form consistent and avoids awkward retuning of existing structure. Calling the golden ratio divine is a human impulse to name what feels perfectly balanced, but more practically, the number shows up because systems that scale proportionally tend to be effective, and that practical success appears as beauty. When density waves move through galaxy disks while the galaxy rotates, the resulting arm patterns form logarithmic spirals, and when the scaling matches certain values, the arms approximate golden spiral proportions across enormous, star-filled distances. The golden angle is uniquely non-repeating in simple fractions, which makes it excellent for distributing elements so they never line up. Nature uses that angle when it needs even coverage without predictable overlaps, creating patterns that look like golden spirals. Packing seeds or leaves with the golden angle fills space nearly perfectly. This near-optimal coverage is an efficient strategy plants have discovered through simple growth rules that collectively yield the spiral outcome. Spiral cams and gears in engineering adopt smoothly changing radii because proportional curves reduce shocks and maintain continuous contact, applying the spiral's principle to motion control and mechanical longevity. The retina and visual cortex prefer even sampling, and the idea behind spiral sampling, spreading sensors or receptors to minimize gaps, reflects the same packing logic that plants use when arranging seeds along golden spiral-like paths. The discrete Fibonacci steps and the continuous golden spiral form a rare bridge between counting and geometry. Whole numbers evolving by addition become ratios that describe smooth, self-similar curves in space. Shell-building animals that add chambers proportionally produce homes whose shapes remain balanced as they scale. The nautilus and similar creatures show that repeating proportional increments is a robust strategy for living architecture. Composers sometimes plant musical motifs at intervals that follow Fibonacci counts because these counts avoid predictable repetition while still building a perceivable structure, and that temporal spacing creates music with a calm, organic sense of progression. River meanders and erosion curves form spiraled bends when flow dynamics favor proportional widening. Water finds routes that balance flow speed and bank resistance, producing curves that echo the same expanding patterns found in the golden spiral. Spiraled beams and shells distribute stress more evenly than corners or sudden bends, and when a structure grows proportionally, it preserves form while gaining size, which is why proportional spirals are a durable answer to physical growth challenges. Overlaying a golden rectangle or spiral on an image can suggest a reading order that feels natural and unforced. The arc guides the eye gently from one area to another, avoiding abrupt focus changes and making the whole frame restful to view. Phyllotaxis, the arrangement of leaves around a stem, commonly follows spiral rules related to the golden angle, And this organization maximizes light capture while preventing self-shading, a practical outcome that looks elegantly proportional. The golden spiral feels the same whether small or large, because the proportion between successive turns never changes, and that scale invariance creates a satisfying visual relationship between parts and the whole. In three-dimensional shells and horns, the golden-like spiral creates a volumetric harmony. Chambers and curls expand proportionally, so the internal layout and external silhouette remain in sync as size increases. The ratio between successive Fibonacci numbers approaches phi gradually, and that slow, steady convergence mirrors the way many natural systems inch toward efficient states rather than reaching them instantly. Logarithmic spirals describe motion where growth is proportional to current size, and such rules naturally arise in phenomena where each step depends on the existing scale, which is the mathematical origin behind many golden spiral sightings. Spiral patterns help avoid stress concentrations because forces follow the curve instead of meeting at a corner. In bones, shells, and engineered parts, that gradual routing of load makes structures more resilient and long-lived. Photographers who compose along a spiral path find subjects that unfold to the viewer in a gentle, exploratory way. The eye moves with purpose but without tension, a feeling similar to slowly watching a curve unroll. The golden ratio connects to pentagonal geometry, and shapes like pentagons and dodecahedra carry phi inside their diagonals and proportions, which links simple geometric forms to the spiral scaling in a quiet, elegant manner. When seeds are organized in clockwise and counterclockwise spirals, the counts often match Fibonacci numbers and provide a symmetrical coverage solution that emerged from local growth rules repeated many times. The golden spiral's multiplicative spacing means arms separate by consistent factors rather than fixed distances. So as you look outward, the pattern breathes into more space without ever crowding the center. Proportional growth often conserves resources because each new increment scales to what already exists. And that economy is why living systems frequently follow golden-like rules when they need to expand consistently. Woodworkers and craftsmen can create spiraled veneers by nesting golden rectangles and drawing the arc. The process builds the shape from balanced pieces, and that construction method produces surfaces that feel tuned rather than forced. Natural approximations of the golden spiral are common because precise mathematical exactness is unnecessary. Approximate proportional growth produces the same visual harmony and functional benefits in living organisms. Small deviations from ideal golden angles still retain the essential benefit of even packing. Biology tolerates imperfection because the trend toward proportional distribution is what matters most for function. Animal coat patterns and feather arrangements sometimes form spiral-like flows because pigmentation and growth fronts interact locally, and those local rules can generate global spiraling structure, resembling golden spiral dynamics. Garden paths laid in spirals encourage a slow, considered movement through space, and designing such paths with proportional turns creates a sense of unhurried exploration, consistent with the calming effect of the golden spiral. The golden ratio's continued fraction representation highlights its deep irrationality, which is why the golden angle distributes elements without repeating patterns and why nature favors it when uniform but non-periodic spacing is needed. Mollusks control shell curvature by adjusting the rate and angle of material deposition. And when these parameters produce proportional scaling, the shell's outline becomes a logarithmic curve that closely resembles a golden spiral. The recurrence of phi across biology art and physics suggest that proportional scaling is a broadly applicable solution, and recognizing this common strategy can feel surprising because it links systems that otherwise seem entirely different. Spiral motifs in jewelry and ornamentation feel timeless because they trace continuous growth. And when craftsmen tune the proportions close to phi, the resulting designs strike a balance between motion and stillness. Neural wiring in the brain sometimes follows folded, curved paths that minimize wiring length while maximizing connectivity. And though not literal golden spirals, these efficient routing strategies follow the same optimization spirit that the spiral embodies. Time-lapse footage of plants reveals spirals emerging as repetition of small decisions. Each new leaf inserts at the golden angle or near it, and watching the pattern appear is watching simple local rules produce global proportional harmony. The golden spiral's role as a bridge between discrete sequences and continuous curves is striking because it shows how integer addition can lead to smooth geometric scaling, a quiet mathematical transformation from counting to curve. Some instrument makers place sound holes and frets according to proportional divisions that mirror the same thinking as golden scaling, and the resulting tone and resonance show how proportion can affect perception as well as structure. Turbines and propellers use blades shaped to gradually accelerate flow, and helical or spiral geometries reduce abrupt changes and energy loss, an engineering application of the same steady proportionality the golden spiral represents. Recognizing the golden spiral across contexts triggers a comfortable familiarity in the mind because repeated exposure to proportional scaling trains perception to prefer forms that expand or contract by steady factors. Ancient artifacts carved with spiral symbols indicate early humans noticed these shapes and valued their sense of continuity long before modern mathematics provided the formal explanation. The golden ratio often sits at the intersection of utility and aesthetics. Proportions that distribute load or space evenly also tend to appear pleasing, so efficiency and beauty can be different expressions of the same proportional logic. Crystal growth and reaction diffusion processes can produce spiral waves when local growth and diffusion balance in certain ways, and these physical spirals sometimes mimic the visual proportionality we associate with golden spirals. In film, an object or actor moving along a spiral path shifts scale and focus in a way that feels natural, and directors use this trick to maintain tension gently rather than forcing sudden visual changes. Page layouts that respect golden proportions are comfortable to read because margins and columns scale in a steady manner, reducing visual friction and letting text and images coexist in a calm, proportional environment. Bark patterns and spiraling grain in wood emerge from growth and twisting forces over time, and when the pattern expands proportionally, the visible spiral preserves a record of the tree's developmental history. The golden spiral's multiplicative nature means shadows and highlights travel along surfaces predictably, which preserves the object's visual balance even as lighting conditions change during the day. Living structures that expand by proportional increments keep internal relationships intact. Chambers, seeds, or petals keep their relative positions, which preserves function while allowing growth. A biologically wise application of the spiral rule. Designers who stack elements by proportion create a rhythmic visual experience. Repetition across scales keeps the eye exploring while still finding familiar reference points, an effect the golden spiral naturally supports. The golden ratio's link to continued fractions explains why it resists concise fractional representation. And that resistance is why placing items at the golden angle spreads them without periodic repetition, which is useful in natural packing strategies. Oceanic and atmospheric vortices are shaped by rotation and radial flow. And when expansion scales with radius, the resulting curves closely resemble logarithmic spirals, showing that similar physical constraints produce similar geometric outcomes. Origami artists fold proportional spirals to create bases that expand without stress, and the paper's success demonstrates in miniature how a single scaling rule generates practical, adaptable forms. Our affinity for golden-like proportions may arise from repeated exposure to such patterns in nature, and that familiarity translates into a subtle sense of comfort when objects or faces conform approximately to these ratios. Local currents on the shoreline form spiraled ripples and eddies when flow interacts with obstacles, and these transient spirals are small-scale examples of the same proportional balance that produces lasting golden-like forms elsewhere. The golden spiral is a geometric answer to steady enlargement. Scaling rather than adding preserves shape and function as size changes, and that principle explains its reappearance across many forms of growth. Compositional overlays of nested golden rectangles produce arcs the eye follows as if reading a paragraph, and artists use this method to pace visual storytelling with the same unbroken continuity the spiral embodies. Pigmentation waves in fish and reptiles can produce swirl patterns when pigment cells follow growth fronts, and when those fronts expand proportionally, the visible patterns take on spiral-like coherence that recalls the golden spiral. The golden spiral's predictability avoids visual surprise. Proportions change steadily rather than abruptly, and that predictability is a core reason the curve feels calming and reliable to look at. From a formulaic perspective, a golden spiral is a logarithmic spiral with base related to phi, and that continuous expression is why the curve is smooth at every point and why its arms never intersect or produce sharp corners. The golden angle's irrational quality prevents simple overlap, which is ideal for natural packing problems where predictable alignment would cause crowding or shading. The angle's near optimal distribution is a quiet, elegant solution. Helical conveyors and ramps use gentle proportional transitions to move goods or people between levels, applying the same steady, non-jarring motion that golden-like spirals provide in a mechanical, practical context. When patterns tend to repeat but risk instability, shifting to proportional scaling preserves order and avoids collapse. The golden spiral is one form this strategy can take, offering a robust route for growth under constraint. Reaction diffusion systems produce spiral wavefronts under some conditions, and while the mechanism differs from proportional growth, the resulting spirals often share the same visual proportionality that associates them conceptually with golden spirals. Interior designers use gentle arcs and proportional spacing to create rooms that invite relaxation, and arranging furniture or focal points along an implied spiral path gives the eye a continuous route that reduces visual friction. Trees that grow with spiraled grain or pooled branches exhibit patterns that are records of twist and expansion over time. And when these records scale proportionally, the wood's visible spirals echo the organism's growth history. The golden spiral is not mandatory for beauty, but its proportional consistency is a reliable method to achieve visual balance. Designers and artists return to it because it communicates harmony without demanding attention. In antenna and optical design, spiral geometries can smooth phase transitions and manage curvature. And the proportional grading across a spiral surface helps performance over wide ranges without sharp aberrations. Seeing the same spiral strategy in many contexts is a reminder that simple, repeated rules can solve complex problems, and the golden spiral is a compact example of how proportional thinking yields resilient and elegant solutions. The golden spiral ties micro and macro together. Seeds and shells, inner ears and galaxies, crafts and architecture all reflect how one proportional rule can produce forms that are functional, durable, and quietly beautiful across scale. The golden spiral is a curve that keeps the same shape as it grows. Each turn becomes slightly larger than the one before it, but always in the same gentle proportion. Because of this steady growth, the spiral feels balanced and calm instead of tight or stretched. No matter how large it becomes, it still feels familiar. As the spiral moves outward, the space between each curve slowly opens up. This change happens smoothly, without sudden jumps or sharp turns. The spiral never feels crowded near the center or too empty near the edges. This soft spacing makes it comfortable for the eyes to follow. A small section of the golden spiral looks very similar to the whole shape. When you zoom in or zoom out, the curve keeps the same feeling and rhythm. This repeating appearance helps the mind recognize the pattern again and again. That sense of familiarity is one reason the spiral feels soothing to look at. The golden spiral grows by scaling up rather than by adding the same amount each time. Every new curve is created by growing the previous one by the same proportion. This keeps the spiral's shape consistent as it expands. Growth like this avoids stretching or distortion. There are no sharp corners anywhere along the golden spiral. Every part of the curve flows smoothly into the next. Because nothing changes direction suddenly, the eye can move along the spiral without stopping. This smooth motion creates a sense of ease and relaxation. Unlike a circle, the golden spiral never repeats the same path. Each turn moves forward into new space while still echoing the turns before it. This creates motion that feels calm rather than trapped. The spiral feels like a quiet journey instead of a loop. In nature, many growing forms follow patterns that keep their shape as they increase in size. The golden spiral shows what this kind of growth looks like. As it expands, all of its parts stay in balance with one another. This balance makes the form feel stable and natural. The rules that create the golden spiral are simple and repeat over and over. These rules make sure the curve stays smooth at every point. No matter how large or small the spiral becomes, it never breaks or bends sharply. This consistency adds to its peaceful appearance. The golden spiral grows at a pace that feels comfortable to human perception. It does not open up too slowly, and it does not rush outward too quickly. Each turn creates space in a gentle, steady way. This balanced growth feels easy to follow. When people describe the golden spiral as calming, they are often responding to its predictability. Each curve follows the last in a clear and understandable way. Nothing about the spiral feels random or forced. Its steady pattern creates a quiet sense of order. The golden spiral is closely connected to the idea of steady change. As it grows, it does not suddenly shift direction or speed. Each curve gently opens into the next, creating a smooth transition from one moment to the next. This kind of gradual movement feels calming because it mirrors slow, natural processes. One reason the golden spiral appears in nature is because it allows growth without reworking what already exists. New layers can be added smoothly to the outside, while the inner structure remains unchanged. This makes the shape efficient and stable over time. Growth becomes a quiet continuation rather than a disruption. When you follow the spiral with your eyes, your attention naturally moves outward in a relaxed way. The curve gently guides vision instead of pulling it suddenly from place to place. This slow guidance reduces visual tension. It allows the mind to stay calm while observing movement. The golden spiral is an example of a shape that feels organized without feeling strict. Its pattern is clear, but not rigid or mechanical. The curve flows naturally, even though it follows a precise rule. This balance between order and softness is part of what makes it so appealing. As the spiral expands, the distance between its turns grows in proportion to the size of the spiral itself. This means the pattern never becomes cramped or overwhelming. Each new turn has enough space to exist comfortably. The spiral seems to breathe as it grows. The golden spiral can be found where systems grow by responding to what already exists. Instead of planning far ahead, each new part simply follows the same simple rule. Over time, this creates a complex and beautiful form. The spiral shows how simplicity can lead to depth. The curve of the golden spiral feels smooth because its rate of change is consistent. The bend never tightens or loosens suddenly. This steady curvature is easy for the eyes and brain to process. Smooth curves like this often feel safer and more relaxing than sharp angles. The golden spiral does not have a clear beginning or end. You can imagine following it inward forever or outward without limit. This sense of continuity gives the shape a timeless quality. It feels like an ongoing process rather than a finished object. When shapes grow proportionally, they tend to keep their balance. The golden spiral is a visual example of this idea. Each part supports the next without overpowering it. The whole form feels stable, even as it expands. The spiral's repeating structure helps the brain predict what comes next. Each curve prepares the eye for the next one in a familiar way. This predictability reduces mental effort. The mind can relax because nothing unexpected happens. The golden spiral often appears when growth follows a steady pattern instead of sudden bursts. Each step forward is based on what already exists, creating continuity rather than disruption. This kind of growth feels natural because it reflects how many living systems develop over time. The spiral becomes a quiet record of gradual change. When you look at the golden spiral, there is no single point that demands attention. The curve gently moves the eye along its path without forcing focus. This creates a relaxed viewing experience where attention can drift. The spiral invites observation rather than demanding it. The shape of the golden spiral allows expansion without losing identity. Even as it grows larger, the form stays recognizable. This consistency gives the spiral a sense of reliability. It always behaves in the same calm and predictable way. In systems that grow outward, proportional spacing helps prevent overcrowding. The golden spiral naturally creates more room as it expands. This allows each new part to exist without pressing too closely against the rest. The result is a balanced and open structure. The golden spiral feels smooth because its curve changes slowly and evenly. There are no sudden bends or sharp turns to interrupt the flow. This evenness makes it easier for the brain to follow. Shapes like this often feel more restful than complex or jagged forms. Patterns based on the golden spiral tend to feel organized without feeling strict. There is a clear structure, but it never feels rigid or mechanical. The curve flows in a way that feels organic. This softness helps explain why the spiral appears calming rather than technical. The spiral's steady expansion makes it feel unhurried. It does not rush outward or stall near the center. Each turn opens up at a measured pace. This gentle timing mirrors slow, natural rhythms found in growth and change. The golden spiral does not rely on symmetry in the usual sense. Instead of matching left and right, it balances itself through proportion. This creates harmony without repetition. The shape feels balanced even though no two points are exactly the same. As you trace the spiral inward, it tightens without collapsing. The space between curves decreases gradually, never suddenly. This controlled narrowing keeps the center from feeling crowded. The spiral maintains calm even at its smallest scale. The golden spiral works well in designs meant to guide movement. Its curve suggests a natural path to follow. Movement along the spiral feels smooth and intentional. This makes it useful for leading attention without pressure. One reason the spiral feels pleasing is because its growth follows a simple rule repeated many times. There is no need for adjustment or correction. Each new part naturally fits with what came before. This simplicity creates quiet order. The golden spiral can feel timeless because it is not tied to any specific scale. It works equally well when imagined as something very small or very large. The same proportions apply in every case. This universality gives the shape a lasting quality. When forms grow proportionally, they tend to remain stable. The golden spiral shows how balance can be preserved through change. As the shape expands, internal relationships stay intact. Stability and growth exist together. The spiral's smooth curve reduces visual strain. The eye does not have to make sudden stops or shifts. Instead, it moves naturally along the path. This gentle motion helps the mind stay relaxed. The golden spiral demonstrates how repetition can create beauty without boredom. Each turn feels familiar, but never identical. The pattern continues without becoming dull. This balance keeps the shape engaging while still calm. When something grows using the golden spiral, it never grows too fast in one direction. The space between each curve slowly increases, giving the shape room to breathe. This gradual opening prevents crowding and tension. The result feels open, balanced, and easy to follow. The golden spiral is special because it looks similar, no matter how close or far away you imagine it. If you zoom in or zoom out, the curve keeps the same overall feeling. This self-similar quality creates a sense of continuity. The shape feels complete at every scale. Unlike sharp shapes, the golden spiral changes direction very slowly. The curve bends just a little at a time, creating a smooth and gentle motion. This makes the spiral easier for the eye to follow. Soft curves like this are often experienced as calming. The golden spiral creates order without strict repetition. Each curve relates to the last, but no two sections are exactly the same size. This prevents the shape from feeling dull or mechanical. There is structure, but also variety. The way the golden spiral expands gives the feeling of steady progress. Each turn moves outward without rushing or stopping. This steady movement feels peaceful, like slow breathing or quiet waves. The spiral never feels stuck or frantic. Because the spiral grows by proportion, it naturally maintains balance as it expands. No part becomes too dominant or overwhelming. Everything stays connected through the same rule. This balance gives the shape a grounded feeling. The golden spiral often feels timeless because it is not tied to a beginning or an end. You can trace it inward or outward without reaching a final point. The curve continues smoothly in both directions. This endless quality can feel soothing to think about. The spiral's shape allows attention to drift without getting lost. The curve gently guides focus along its path. There is always a next place to go, but no pressure to arrive. This makes the shape comfortable to observe for long periods. The golden spiral shows how complexity can come from a very simple idea. One quiet rule repeated many times creates a rich and flowing form. There is no need for complicated instructions. This simplicity beneath the surface can feel reassuring. Got it. I'll keep the language relaxed and simple, but deepen each idea so it feels fuller and more immersive. Here's a thicker version of all 20, without numbering and with a calm, script-ready flow. The golden spiral is a type of spiral that never really ends. It keeps moving outward forever, growing larger while keeping the same gentle shape. There is no final edge or stopping point to it. No matter how far it expands, it stays true to its pattern, which gives it a feeling of continuity and calm. Even though the golden spiral feels ancient, it is explained using modern math. Mathematicians describe it with clear equations that show how smoothly it grows. These equations help explain why the spiral never feels uneven or random. Because of this clarity, it is often used as an example of clean, elegant structure. The curve of the golden spiral never becomes sharp or flat. Its turning motion stays smooth from the center all the way outward. There are no sudden changes in direction to interrupt the flow. This steady movement is one reason people often find it soothing to look at. The golden spiral belongs to a larger family of shapes called logarithmic spirals. What makes it different is how precisely its growth is controlled. Each turn follows the same rule over and over. Because of this, the shape remains stable, even as it grows larger. If you zoom in closely on the center of a golden spiral, it still makes sense. The shape does not fall apart or become messy at smaller scales. It looks just as intentional and clear near the center as it does farther out. This gives the spiral a feeling of consistency. The spiral can be drawn using very simple tools. You don't need advanced technology or complex software to create it. With a ruler, a compass, and some patience, the shape slowly comes together. This simplicity makes it feel approachable and grounded. Many people believe the golden spiral appears perfectly in nature, but that is rarely true. Real shells, plants, and patterns are usually only close to it, not exact. Nature allows for variation and imperfection. That flexibility makes natural forms feel alive rather than rigid. The golden spiral does not depend on straight lines at all. Every part of it is curved and flowing. There are no hard corners or sharp angles to interrupt the motion. This gives it a softer, more organic feeling. The curve of the golden spiral never crosses over itself. It always moves forward, expanding outward without turning back. This gives the shape a sense of order and direction. It feels purposeful without feeling forced. Many people connect the golden spiral with balance. This feeling comes from how evenly it expands over time. Nothing feels crowded or stretched too far. The growth feels natural, like it is happening at the right pace. The golden spiral can be flipped, rotated or resized, and still feel familiar. Even when its position changes, the shape remains recognizable. Our eyes quickly adjust to it and understand its flow. This familiarity makes it comforting to look at. The spiral is often mentioned in design and art, but it is not a strict rule. Designers use it more as a guide than a requirement. It helps suggest where movement or focus might go. The goal is flow, not perfection. As the spiral grows, the space between each turn slowly increases. This change happens gently, without sudden jumps. The widening feels gradual and calm. That steady expansion adds to the spiral's quiet rhythm. The golden spiral does not favor a single direction. It can curve to the left or to the right, depending on how it is drawn. Both versions follow the same rule and feel equally balanced. Direction does not change its nature. Even though the spiral is based on numbers, it does not feel cold or mechanical. It feels alive and smooth, like something that belongs in the natural world. This mix of structure and softness is part of its appeal. It shows how math can feel gentle. The center of the spiral is not always obvious right away. Your eyes often follow the curve before noticing where it began. This creates a sense of motion, like being guided along a path. The experience feels slow and intentional. Artists sometimes use the spiral without making it obvious. It quietly guides how elements are placed in an image. Most viewers never notice it directly. They just feel that everything seems to flow together naturally. The spiral grows by building on what came before it. Each new part is connected to the previous one. Nothing is added randomly. This makes the growth feel continuous and connected. There is no single correct size for a golden spiral. It can be drawn very small or incredibly large. The feeling of the shape stays the same no matter the scale. Size does not change its character. The golden spiral encourages slow observation, doesn't demand attention all at once. The longer you look at it, the more comfortable it feels. Over time, it starts to feel familiar, almost like a quiet pattern you've always known.